Hey y'all, what's up? It is Spicy AF and I'm back with another spicy topic. Hit that thumbs up, like this video. Also, follow me on X, it's Spicy AF and at spicyspill on Instagram. Here's my picture. Subscribe and share. Diddy is in it again, y'all. Again. This time, this is the one that really irritates me so much, like really makes me angry and disgusted. His artist at one time, Dawn Richards, who was a member of his show, Making the Band, someone who was very much wanting to be a star. She really wanted it, along with the rest of their band members. The singers, they wanted it. But look at Dawn, y'all. Dawn came out and said that she's suing Diddy for SA and DV. So this man who's supposed to be helping these young kids, he had this group and he started separating them only to isolate these girls, sleep with them, become abusive, throw his ass on them, his will on them, and abuse them. That's what angers me the most. Dawn was very hungry for fame, like the rest of the girls. They was hungry. He got rid of the rest of the girls and had just the two girls. And the one girl is still, the other dark skinned girl, I forget her name right now. Keisha, I forget her name. She is still defending Diddy. She was still defending Diddy on his last SA. When Cassie spoke out, she was defending Diddy, and she would have known, if nobody would have known, that Diddy hurt Dawn, because they all, Dawn and her was just, they was the group after it was said and done. So Dawn says that Diddy violated her. Somebody hungry for fame, somebody that really wanted it, someone that had a glow on them, somebody who, just a beautiful person. She claims that she witnessed Diddy abusing Cassie and Kim Porter, y'all. She's a witness. Y'all, let's get into this.
Dawn Richards had to be at least 20 or 21 years old when she starred on Making the Band in 2004. She did season 3 and then did another season 9. This one right here, it just perturbs me because these are young people who really want a career and they look up to Diddy because, of course, he is the man that can put you in position of being a celebrity and using your gifts. So this girl really anxiously, happily, excitedly wanted to make it mainstream. And what did Diddy do? Diddy did it. Diddy played on the fact that these young, impressionable children, pretty much, just coming into adulthood, wanted something so much. And he took advantage of them, y'all. He took full advantage. And this is why, as of now, Diddy is now behind bars. He's behind bars as we speak, trying to get out on bail, offering $50 million if they let him out to give up his passports. He's trying every card in the book, and feds are not buying it. He's looking real sad on his mugshot. And get this is what's real crazy. He's trying to get out and act like he's gonna be good and this upstanding person that he should have been. He should have been, just so he can get out on bail. But it came out that Diddy was caught. When they picked him up, he was caught with cocaine, pink cocaine. The man was dirty. He has a habit. He has a drug addiction. And that wasn't going to help his case. It's just crazy for him. But it's just really, really, really crazy that after he put all these women through all the hell, and the men that he put through hell and pain back there, and him torturing these people, he humiliating these people. Not only did he play Dawn and all the making the band artists, all of his actual artists he had besides that, he took their money. People like Mace, his artists that complain, Cameron, people complain about Diddy. After he does that, he does the same thing to Dawn. Dawn is also suing Diddy as well because he owes her money, took her publishing rights, took her writing credits, just like Little Rod. He took her money. Took her money. Y'all, she's saying in this 55-page lawsuit here, some tea. She is saying that she was present when Cassie and Diddy met. She was actually there, y'all. It says Miss Richard was present when Mr. Combs was introduced to Cassie Ventura for the first time in or around 2006. The moment Mr. Combs first saw Miss Ventura, his demeanor noticeably shifted. Mr. Combs positioned himself directly in front of Miss Ventura's seat, invading her personal space and fixated on her with an intense, unyielding stare, isolating her from the other people in the room, including Miss Ventura's then boyfriend, music producer Ryan Leslie. I mean, at that time, that could have been intriguing to some women. Probably most of the women that came in contact with this man and later became victims. But after a while, that same stare is creepy and it's a turn off. It's not cute. It's weird. But to a young person, to a shy person who wants to make it in the industry, you have his attention. So this is something that is intriguing to this person and enticing to them. They want your attention because they know you have the celebrity they need. You have the network ability. You have everything they need. And that is how they become his victims, y'all. Coincidentally, this first meeting between Mr. Combs and Miss Ventura was the first time that Miss Richard was in Mr. Combs' presence without a camera crew filming. Observing Mr. Combs behave in such an intimidating, predatory manner the first time that they were off camera made Miss Richard feel deeply apprehensive and afraid of him. Subsequently, Miss Ventura ended her relationship with Mr. Leslie and began dating Mr. Combs, who would become violent and abusive towards her. As I previously stated, she was at least 20 or 21 years old, y'all. Now it gets into the disgusting part. So it says here, okay, DANITY KANE, it's quote, sexual harassment, inhumane treatment, and denial of basic needs by Mr. Combs. For the majority of Miss Richards' tenure as a member of DANITY KANE and Diddy Dirty Money, Mr. Combs required her to remain at his various residences and studios in New York, Los Angeles, Florida, and New Jersey for activities such as recording, rehearsing, dressing, preparing costumes, and exercising. Throughout the productions of Making the Band 3 and 4, Mr. Combs deprived Miss Richard and her DANITY KANE bandmates of basic needs such as adequate food and sleep. When Miss Richard or her DANITY KANE bandmates requested meals or rest, Mr. Combs refused, y'all, and chastised them with derogatory comments like, "You bees don't want this," or "Y'all are not hungry enough and I'm paying you bees to work." This demeaning behavior gradually undermined Miss Richards' confidence and contributed significantly to her growing feelings of insecurity and fear of reprisal from Mr. Combs, as it would. Now, y'all, we are talking not only about physical abuse that this man was doing, we are also talking about the more long-term effects of abuse, emotional and mental abuse, depriving people of food, their basic need of nutrients and energy, because food transforms into energy. So their basic form of energy, and they have to dance, you want them to exercise, you want them to dance, you want them to perform for you. She talks about 48 hours straight. And he made them choose between food and or getting some sleep. So not only were they sleep deprived, they were also food nurturance. What am I saying? Nutrients deprived. How can you perform hungry and sleepy? So not only was he was starving these girls, but he was emotionally and mentally abusing them, calling them derogatory names, putting them down while they're hungry and tired, putting this stuff into them, into their subconscious, tearing them down. Miss Richards began to normalize these extreme conditions and perceive them to standard requirements of her participation in DANITY KANE. Mr. Combs regularly sent his associates to wake Miss Richard and her DANITY KANE bandmates in the overnight hours so he could watch them rehearse. The regularity of these disturbances led Miss Richard to adapt by sleeping in a sitting position, fully dressed and with makeup on, heightening her anxiety. Over time, this abnormal sleeping arrangement came to feel routine, further normalizing Mr. Combs' invasive demands. In addition to exhausting rehearsals, Mr. Combs required Miss Richard and her bandmates to participate in these workouts with a personal trainer. On one occasion, while running on the beach, Miss Richard became so dehydrated that she vomited. Instead of offering medical assistance, MTV Network's camera crew filmed the incident, contributing to her acceptance of such treatment as part of her professional life. The unrelenting and rigorous schedule of rehearsals, performances, and near constant filming that Mr. Combs imposed caused Miss Richard to experience extreme weight loss, dehydration, fatigue, and painful rashes from the microphone pack she was required to wear on her back. These conditions intensified Miss Richard's feelings of powerlessness as she increasingly viewed them as part of her professional reality and feared the consequences of any resistance. In a further assertion of power and dominance, Mr. Combs insisted on holding meetings while dressed, y'all, only in his underwear. Now he's crossing boundaries. Now the employer, the boss, is completely violating privacy. Completely. Sexual harassment. Just morality-wise, this is immoral and unethical behavior from a boss standpoint. On one occasion in 2008 at his Miami residence, Mr. Combs emailed Miss Richard directing her to meet him in the living room. And now look y'all, now he first goes into a meeting with his underwear. Sees her reaction. I'm sure she looked uncomfortable. I'm sure that she was probably looked a little scared. And just uncomfortable and unsure, confused. Like, do I say something? He is the business owner. This is not like a corporate company type of job. So, is this normal? And so, because he got away with that, he's now advancing to meeting in his living room. When she arrived, he was wearing only his underwear. Miss Richard asked Mr. Combs to put on clothes. Now, this time, she's asking him, can you put on clothes? Because now she feels completely uncomfortable. You are now in his own setting, in his home. So we're not in an office setting. We are now in your home, so it's a whole different vibe. She finds the courage now to ask him, put some clothes on. But he refused, stating that this is effing his house. This was his house. Mr. Combs then conducted a meeting lasting approximately an hour while dressed in his underwear, causing Miss Richard to feel violated and embarrassed and amplifying her feelings of powerlessness. Now look, y'all. So this goes on into after DANITY KANE broke up. So it says, following the official DANITY KANE breakup in early 2009, effectuated by Mr. Combs, Miss Richard experienced significant financial hardship. Now she's losing money. The group broke up. With no prospective opportunities for employment within the entertainment field, Miss Richard spent several months traveling from Baltimore to Daddy's house recording studio in New York without pay or allocated budget. I've been there before, by the way. It was in Manhattan. Mr. Combs promised that Miss Richards' compositions will result in payment of license fees and royalties pursuant to her contract with Bad Boy Records. However, no such compensation was ever reported on paid to Miss Richard. Damages relative to these continuing copyright infringements will be proved at trial. So here we go. Wages now are on the docket. Now we need money. The group broke up. He lied. He said she would get royalties, and there's no royalties. It says here, Diddy, dirty money. Miss Richer experiences Mr. Combs' gender-based physical violence, criminal acts, sexual assault threats, and intimidation. Now we get into all of that. Keeping in mind how he broke her down, you gotta pay attention to how the abuser orchestrates, how the abuser coordinates, how does the abuser groom his victim. And this can go with any type of scenario of abuse. Whether it's a child and an older adult, it's a husband and a wife, it's an ex-boyfriend and an ex-girlfriend partner, or it's a professional relationship. Just pay attention so you can recognize the signs, how they operate. So he broke them down first by humiliating the group. Then he breaks the group up. He starts making them do rehearsals, not eating and not getting sleep. So he's breaking them down mentally. And then while he's broken them down mentally and broken their spirit, he climbs in their subconscious, talking to them derogative, cussing them, then he's having private meetings. I'm sure, I want to say it wasn't just Dawn. Dawn may have thought she was the only one, but it could have been other victims. What's the other one? Audrey O'Day. She's constantly hinting at some abuse that happened with her all the time. Ever since DANITY came, she's been uttering some of the abuse. So you don't know who else was suffering these things privately, secretly. Yeah, so just pay attention how this falls into place. Now we're getting into the violence. So it says, by approximately the fall of 2009, many of Miss Richard's compositions had been recorded by other bad boy record artists. Due to the success of her compositions, Miss Richard was invited to meet with musical artist Kalina Harper, they call Miss Harper, and shortly thereafter Mr. Combs. Miss Richard and Miss Harper formed a new group, Diddy, Dirty Money. Don't let that go over your head. She was writing music. She was composing, putting music together, orchestrating music. So there's money out there on the table. She's not getting royalties. She's out of the group, but she's still composing music for other group members. Because he had another group. He had the guy group. Day 26. Initial recording for Diddy Dirty Money's album Last Train to Paris took place in Mr. Combs' home on DeHenney Drive in Los Angeles, California. On the first day of recording, Miss Richard and Miss Harper arrived at Mr. Combs' home and waited in the kitchen, where Mr. Combs' girlfriend, Miss Ventura, who was Cassie, was frying eggs for him. Miss Richard observed Mr. Combs come down the stairs looking high on drugs, into the kitchen, approached Miss Ventura and screamed, "I've been asking for my ish. I can't stand you, B. You never do it right." Mr. Combs pushed Miss Ventura against the wall and choked her. Then picked up the scalding hot pan of eggs and threw it at her, causing her to fall to the ground in a fetal position. Cursing and screaming, Mr. Combs dragged Miss Ventura up the stairs. You can only imagine because we saw the video of him beating her up in the hallway. Frozen in shock and terror, Miss Richard heard glass shattering, crashing, and banging noises as Mr. Combs dragged Miss Ventura up the stairs. Miss Richard wanted to intervene and help Miss Ventura, but Miss Harper adamantly refused to interfere in Mr. Combs' relationship. Focus, because if you think about not too long ago, when the news first came out on CNN of Diddy beating up Cassie in that hotel, when it first aired, Kalina immediately took Diddy's side. And recently, she took his side again as this lawsuit just came out. So even back then, she took a stance to stay out of it, and she seemed like she already chose Diddy's side. For whatever reason, like I said, you don't know at the time, neither did Dawn know, if Diddy was taking her as in Kalina Harper, also on these secret meetings in his underwear. You don't know the relationship they could have had. He could have been in the same force of threat that he put on Dawn. He could have been putting on her. So we don't know why she reacted her way and took his side. He could have been threatening her. The following day, Miss Richard received a call demanding that she return to Mr. Combs' residence to continue recording. Mr. Combs brought Miss Richard and Miss Harper into the recording room at his studio, locked the door, dimmed the lights, and gave each of them flowers. That's weird. Imagine you saw Diddy beating up his girlfriend. She doing a good deed for him by cooking him breakfast, and she ends up wearing the breakfast. Ends up knocked on the wall, choked, cussed out, called all types of names, everything but a child of God. And now this man is calling you and your bandmate to his house, to his studio, or rather, lights out, giving you flowers. This man is all over the place. You don't know what mood he's in today. Well, as you can see the flowers, you probably thinking this man's spontaneous actions, he might try to come on to me. So let's go. Mr. Combs went on at length, stating, "This is normal. This was just a lover's argument where no one was hurt. This is what love is." Wow, y'all. And to a young person who has already experienced mental and emotional abuse by this man, they could actually believe that. That can actually be planted in their belief system. This could actually be a turning point in their own lives when they date. And maybe it could be hard for them to determine what is normal and what is not. But just check and peep how after Diddy beats up these women, he tries to quickly get in their heads and tell them this is normal. It was nothing. It wasn't that serious. It was just a lover's argument. Because he don't want them to go to the police. That's why. Because he know it's not normal and he know it's wrong. He know that he will go to prison. He be investigated and exposed. So therefore, he has to try to bring them these flowers and make everything like it was just small. Although their eyes wasn't playing tricks on them. Their ears wasn't either. They know what they heard and what they saw. He says, "I'm giving you an opportunity. If you want to make it, you'll shut your mouth. If you say anything, there will be consequences." Mr. Combs further warned that people end up missing, being threatened while locked for over 20 minutes in a small enclosed space with Mr. Combs after observing Mr. Combs violently assault Miss Ventura the day before. Miss Richard was terrified and genuinely believed that Mr. Combs would follow through on his threats. As he would. Like, people do go missing around Diddy. He was already involved in a shooting when he was with Jennifer Lopez. And that victim who was shot, she spoke out recently after the Cassie incident and said that no, it was not the rapper who shot her. It was Diddy who shot her. And he passed Jennifer Lopez the gun. He looked her in her eyes. So she identified the person that shot her as Diddy. So there was already an air of fear around Diddy through the industry, and based on what these people saw, they would be scared. In or around November 2009, after the Soul Train Awards in Atlanta, Georgia, Mr. Combs flew Miss Richard and Miss Harper to his house in New York on his private jet for an after party. Now he's giving them elite service. Now he's giving them the private jet, and he's taking them to his parties. There were many well-known celebrities at the after party, and copious amounts of illegal drugs were being openly consumed. Some of your faves on that stuff. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs had arranged for dozens of young women and girls, some of whom appeared to be underage, to be transported to the party. Around December 2010, Diddy Dirty Money was preparing for an upcoming performance on Saturday Night Live. As usual, rehearsals lasted for days without the opportunity to eat or rest, and the rehearsal schedule was unpredictable. After waiting all day for Mr. Combs to call or send a car, Miss Richard received a phone call from Mr. Combs demanding, "Where the F are you bees? You bees don't want this. Y'all don't deserve to have someone pick you up. Get a cab." Miss Richard and Miss Harper immediately took a taxi to Sir Studios at 520 West 25th Street, anxious because Mr. Combs sounded enraged. Upon their arrival at Sir Studios, Mr. Combs and Harvey Pierre were waiting for them in the lobby. Mr. Combs screamed obscenities at them. "Where the F you bees? You bees don't want to win. You don't want this. I'm so tired of y'all. Miss Richard noticed that people in the lobby were reacting to Mr. Combs' tirade. Embarrassed, Miss Richard asked Mr. Combs to stop swearing and calling him bees in front of everyone. Mr. Combs' facial expression shifted as he stepped towards Miss Richard, raised his arm, and swung his fist towards her face. Believing that Mr. Combs was going to hit her, Miss Richard braced for the impact. Before Mr. Combs could strike her, Mr. Combs' bodyguard grabbed her, escorted her out of the studio, and forced her into the Bad Boy Records Bentley that was parked outside. Miss Harper ran after Miss Richard, and Mr. Combs' bodyguard closed and locked the Bentley's doors with both women inside. Inside the vehicle, Miss Richard realized there was no interior door handles. Oh my goodness. And that they were locked inside with no way to escape. Miss Richards' belongings were in the studio, but she was able to call her father from Miss Harper's cell phone. Miss Richard relayed to her father what had happened and that she needed help and feared that she would go missing. Moments later, Mr. Combs' bodyguard removed only Miss Harper from the Bentley, leaving Miss Richard locked in the car alone for over 2 hours. Miss Richard screamed as loudly as she could, but no one responded. It was late evening in the wintertime. The windows were very tinted and the interior of the car was dark except for faint interior lights. Miss Richard's belongings and winter coat were in the studio while the ignition was off and there was no heat. This man is crazy. So here we have false imprisonment, y'all. With Mr. Combs' prior threats and violence running through her mind, Miss Richard left sheer panic, terror, and feelings of claustrophobia at being locked in a small, dark, enclosed space with no way to communicate or call for help. She began to feel cold and fear for her life, not knowing when or if she would be released. Richard's father drove to New York from Baltimore and arrived at the studio approximately 2 hours later. That's right, Daddy. He was on his way because it takes about 2 hours to get there from Baltimore, for real. So that means, and I think even longer, like 3 hours. That means that man was going 100 miles an hour. Only after her father arrived and demanded to see her did Mr. Pierre order Mr. Combs' bodyguard to release Miss Richard from the vehicle. Mr. Pierre ushered Miss Richard's father between several rooms at Sir Studios, where he waited for approximately 2 hours before being able to confront Mr. Combs. Once Mr. Richard's father expressed that he intended to contact police, Mr. Combs warned him to think about your family and think about your daughter's career. Her father appeared visibly frightened by Mr. Combs' threats and actions, which in turn made Miss Richard feel terrified for herself and her family's safety. The next night, Diddy Dirty Money performed on SNL. Mr. Combs subsequently called Miss Richard, complimented her performance, and concluded with a threat. You don't call your dad unless you're in the hospital. Yo, this man is sick. Oh my goodness, y'all. I'm going to stop here on the reading. But this goes on. This goes to page 55. Can you see, though, for yourself, how this all goes in order? How he just takes away their safety, their natural ability to feel safe is taken away immediately. It's just, and then he's depriving them of food and sleep, so they don't even feel like themselves, and they probably feel sick quite often. It's crazy. But I like how her dad got there. Now, usually it take like 3 hours to get from Baltimore up to New York. But this man had to been going 100 miles per hour straight through coasting to get there in 2 hours. But I like how he came for his daughter. And that pays off a lot. I do believe this is how Dawn escaped a lifetime of this happening. She got out quick as she could. And you know what this reminds me of? It's just a different type of abuse. The way Cassie was being physically abused, I liken this to how Dawn was being mentally and emotionally abused. It's like I get the same rage. And I didn't even continue reading the lawsuit because I don't know if they're going to get into him putting his hands on her. It's crazy, y'all. I can see the same type of impact that Cassie had, Dawn having. I can see that coming. For sure. I get that same rage. We gotta continue this on another time, but for now I'm gonna leave it here, y'all. Please leave your comments. Let me know your thoughts.
Yeah, so this one really disturbing and disgusts me. His lawyer is gonna do what a lawyer does, come out and act like Diddy is wrongfully accused and he's never would do anything like this. That's his job. That's what he gets paid to do. But this is absurd. This is absurd that he even has somebody that's willing to defend him. Money is a root to all evil. Did you hear the details on that lawsuit? This is just synopsis. They say this is a long lawsuit. So supposedly Diddy punched Cassie in the stomach while Neo and Usher was there, and they just kept eating. Again, punks, like for a it's just terrible, you know, for a person to sit and watch this, a man to let this happen. I can only imagine how Cassie felt, how scared that she could have been to be in the months of people. They so bold now with it. They kick it. He punching her in her stomach in front of other celebrity men. Just bold. While he is supposedly out here feeding her drugs, getting her high out of her mind, sending her to sleep with other men so he can watch and get off, beating her and kicking her down hotel hallways, paying people to hide the footage, while he's being disgusting and beating up Kim Porter, having all these girlfriends on her. He's also SAing Dawn Richards. He's also beating on Dawn Richards and threatening Dawn. Dawn, you got all these mother men that won't do nothing, and you got Dawn who tried to do something as a woman. That really pissed me off. She tried. Where the men at? Just a bunch of punks. Suckers. It's always a black woman that's always stronger than these men sometimes. It just really disgusts me, like I said. So I apologize. This is offensive. Some men are just stronger. Some men would never sit and let this happen. Some men cannot be bought, you know, cannot be sold. But the ones around Diddy that allowed this to happen, that sat and ate and was comfortable, their stomach was still hungry enough, they wasn't disgusted and wanted to vomit. These are the men that I would not want around me. I would not trust around me. I don't care. They can call it being groomed. They were groomed too. Bush. These are men. You have Dawn who risked her life speaking up for Cassie and getting beat on. She's slim. She's a female and she's standing up. And the men around can't do nothing. It's disgusting and it's disturbing. And I pray that Dawn get all that money that she's owed for those charges or those suits, and that she get her justice, because it's not right for her to be hungry for fame. Somebody comes along and they put their shit, insert themselves in your life, and they act like they really care about your past and your career, only to have a plan to sexually take over you, violate you, beat you up, insult you, humiliate you, and leave you with nothing. They screw your life up just for the fun of it. Not cool. And again, people are wondering why Jay-Z and Beyonce don't say anything. They was around for some of this stuff. It's the facts. They was around for some of this stuff. I feel like Beyonce is a little powerless though. I feel like she is a sheep among wolves. And sometimes I feel like she can also be the wolf. But people want to know why they don't speak too. Why don't they why you only separate yourself when Diddy is getting the bad publicity, dog? Why wasn't her getting punched in her stomach in front of Usher and Neo enough for you to separate yourself? Why wasn't it Kim Porter getting punched in the nose, breaking her nose enough for you to separate yourself? Why? All those other women that got beat up that you know about, you still was loyal to Diddy. The only reason you stopped being loyal to Diddy, when Diddy was losing his fame and his stardom, that's when you turned. It wasn't nothing or no other reason. So you won't get caught. You won't get hit. Y'all, what y'all think? Let me know in the comments. This one's disturbing because Dawn is a young woman. She was young at that time for a predator to prey on her. Turn her dream into nightmares. Give her trauma when she had joy. Take her life and turn it upside down for his disgusting pleasure. And for Neo and Usher to watch, I don't F with them no more. I don't F with them no more now that I know. Dawn stood up for Cassie. Dawn did. A woman. No. A slim woman put her life on the line. And for men to sit around and do nothing, still had the appetite to take a fork to their mouth. Should have choked on it. Anyway, y'all, let me know what y'all think. Hit that thumbs up. Like this video. Subscribe. Stay tuned, because we got more coming.